name is Cynthia Tina, and right now I'm talking to you from Asheville, North Carolina, where I am stationed. And from this house, I am connected to projects all around the world, especially a big project called the Global Ecovillage Network, also known as GEN. And GEN is an organization that's been around for over 20 years, trying to connect and support the eco-village movement all around the world. So it's operating currently in 5 global regions spanning from Africa to Latin America, North America, Europe, and Asia and Oceania. And what GEN's trying to do is really showcase these incredible projects that are emerging, these kind of experiments in creating sustainable, holistic human settlements. So there's many different expressions for how that can take place. There's big communities like Oroville and Findhorn with hundreds of members. And then there's small local community projects. There's ecovillage projects in urban settings. There's ecovillage projects in rural, even traditional areas like villages in Africa that are trying to make the transition from the village life as it always has been into something that can look a bit more sustainable. So that's some background for GEN. I'm currently serving on the board of GEN, which, like I said, is operating globally. And then here in North America, we have some great organizations as well. The Fellowship for Intentional Community. FIC has a website called ic.org, where they have a searchable online directory of all these intentional communities. So if you want to find one to check out, potentially live at, that's a great resource. There's also a new company called NuMundo, which means New World in Spanish. And this is also a map and a booking tool. So if you want to travel to take a vacation to Costa Rica, but want to actually visit a community that is doing regenerative land projects, an excellent resource. And then my work with NextGEN, which is kind of the youth movement spawn on from GEN, is really looking at how we can engage young people in this movement. Because we know that, as these organizations are aging, as communities are aging, we really need to pass off this knowledge and give power in a graceful way to the younger generation so that they can carry that forward. Yeah, so with that work, I'm hosting events, offering coaching, consulting, to try to support however I can.
Cynthia, could you give us a few examples, either of people you work with or some of the communities, just to get concrete and to help us envision what the goals are of your work?
Yeah, so I travel a lot as part of what I do, and I just finished a 6-month journey traveling through much of the United States and a bit in Central America. Yeah, I'll just touch on a few communities that are near to my heart. One is Sirius Community in Massachusetts. This is a almost 40-year-old eco-village. It's a spiritual, educational, permaculture-rich community with like gorgeous timber frame buildings made from trees milled and harvested from the land, lots of sustainable technologies. And yet this community is aging. So it's really looking at, okay, as our founders get older, as our community ages, how can we both attract young people who are looking for affordable housing, they're looking for jobs, they're looking for places where they can really be and live. How can we, even though they weren't the founders, they didn't have that pioneering spirit, how can we still give them power and empower them really to make changes and evolve this community? Gosh, let's see, similar in Hummingbird community in New Mexico where I was, very different climate, but also an aging community seeking to bring in young people. And then there's so many little community projects popping up all over the place, especially surrounding San Francisco and the Bay Area. There's lots of urban community projects, land ownership switching into community land trusts, into more collective ownership. Lots of garden projects, especially water. More and more so people are realizing that we've got to encourage the protection of water. We have to reform our land to both clean water and make sure that there's access to fresh drinkable water for all people. And that's a big part of the work that's happening right now as well.
Cynthia, people often ask us how eco-villages in other parts of the world are similar to and different from the communities in the United States that a lot of us know. Since you have this global perspective as a board member from GEN and have traveled, can you tell us a little bit or give us some sense of the life and the goals and what it's like to live on eco-villages in other countries?
Well, I'll start by talking about the unique nature of North America, because we don't have a long history of villages. You know, the native indigenous people of this land who did have very strong community and tribal values aren't so much with us anymore. They've been pushed more so into the shadows. And so, yeah, we in the United States are really relearning how to be a community. We don't have these village models. We have towns and cities, but that's different than a village. Whereas in Europe, for example, they have these incredible relics from hundreds of years of stone villages, and people still to this day living in close-knit communities where there's a lot of exchange of resources, people spend more quality time together, is my experience. So it feels easier there, like the shift is, it's not quite a leap from mainstream village life. They got the community piece more or less. It's just adding in those eco components, adding in the solar panel, the composting, the food, waste management. And then in parts of the global south, the more developing countries that we think of, it also has a different feel because the community values are very much alive, and there has been an intense period of colonialization of another culture, a foreign culture coming in and saying, oh no, you got to do this one way or the other. I'll tell a short story. When I was 18, I went to Kenya and volunteered teaching organic farming to women's groups and youth groups. And what I found is I was telling these farmers, you know, you should be doing these organic practices. They were like, what? That's backwards. That's not, you know, that's not progress. That's not the American way. You're trying to trick us. That's what our grandparents did. So much celebration. We have to really like celebrate and be so respectful when we're working with these different cultures and wanting to honor, you know, them in their fullness and not preach and not think we're going in there to rescue or change. Yeah, well, that's
Cynthia, can I ask you one last question? And that is, why are you doing this? Why are you and Jen and the other organizations that you work with and the people who are, you know, really devoting their lives to living in different ways on the earth? What's the long-term goal? We always ask about what would a genuinely ecological civilization look like, a sustainable world that could be around for hundreds of years without destroying the future. How do you guys envision that future in your work?
Such a good question. Well, I think in the immediate sense, people are living this kind of lifestyle because it's more enjoyable, actually. It's more fun to be connected and being in relation with your neighbors. It's more fun to be growing your food and having a relationship with your food. You feel healthier, you feel more alive. I think in the long term, a sustainable society, you know, it's gonna look different wherever you are. And that's a big piece of this, is celebrating local diversity, celebrating bioregional expressions of sustainable values. But I think what you'll find is there'll be some common trends and themes throughout all of these localized land-based projects. And that is having social sustainability, making sure that community piece is really there and really well fostered, there's a strong sense of community glue, that people are looking out for the social welfare of everyone because we recognize that, you know, there's no separation actually. That the same thing applies with the land, with our environmental sustainability. So making sure that we are using full energy, nutrient cycles, there is no waste, really putting in practice many of these permaculture principles, design principles to recreate our infrastructure and our land. Economic piece of sustainability is going to be really important. How can we share amongst each other, like what is the means of exchange that we're living in? I think for me, my ideal vision would be more so a gift economy, where it's less about, oh, I'll do this for you and you do that for me, but more so I'm giving from a place of abundance because I want to, and I'm trusting that the community has enough general reciprocity to support me in my path, and so that we can all really be going full force with what we want to be doing in the world, that we can create right livelihoods for ourselves, so I can pursue my passion, pursue my bliss, and that the community can encourage that, and there's just more trust. And then the last piece, and I'm borrowing this model from the Gaia Education Wheel of Sustainability, would be cultural, spiritual aspect of sustainability, of regenerative living, of the future societies we're going to create. This is talking about our worldview. And I think more so than anything else, having a shift in worldview is going to radically redefine the ways that we live our lives. So when we can put on the perspective that there is no separation, that we're all, you know, as Thich Nhat Hanh said, you know, interbeings, we're dependent on each other, and also more than that, we are each other in the sense that what I do affects the whole web of life, and the same goes for every aspect of that web. So it calls upon us to take radical responsibilities for our lives and the decisions we make. And it comes with that shift. Like, it's not so much that we're saying, oh, everyone come and live in an eco-village and that'll solve the world's problems and that's what we're going for. But it's much more so, just ask why. Take a pause out of your day. Just ask, why am I doing this? Why am I making the decision to buy this inorganic carrot versus an organic carrot in the grocery store? Why am I choosing to drive instead of walk or ride my bike? You know, why am I choosing to indoctrinate myself with certain media outlets or channels? Just holding greater awareness for ourselves and our role in everything.
Cynthia, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.